Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Audit Committee taking place on Monday, the 20th of February, 2022. The meeting is being broadcast live through our YouTube channel. I am Councillor Alex Watson, and I will be chairing the meeting today. Could I ask everyone to switch off or make silent their mobile phones, please? Please keep microphones switched off at all times, unless invited to speak by the chair. When invited to speak, please switch on the microphone nearest to you and introduce yourself. Could I also extend, on behalf of the committee, our welcome to Tracy Henderson, who was recently appointed to the position of Chief Internal Auditor and Corporate Fraud Manager. Tracy has a wealth of experience in local government internal audit, having worked previously within Darlington Borough Council's Internal Audit Service from 1997 until 2007, and at Sedgefield Borough Council from 2007 until 2009, before taking up the position of Principal Auditor with the new unitary Durham County Council in 2009. Tracy then fulfilled the role of Interim Audit Manager from 1st of September 2020. Could I also express on behalf of the committee our thanks to Beverly White, a regular attendee of our committee meetings, and who today will present her final 3 reports linked to the Council's statutory accounts processes, and also to Stephen Carter, who unfortunately is not able to join us today, but both of who are retiring at the end of March, and also to Dave Marshall, who left the Council last month. With that, item 1, apologies for absence. Can I ask Joe March if there's been any apologies received, please? Joe.
Thanks, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Jackson.
Right. With that, we'll move on to item 2, which is the meeting held on the 20th of November 2021. These begin on page 5 of our papers. Can I ask if anyone has any questions or comments in relation to the minutes provided? And can I ask for a mover and seconder for the minutes, please? Got the mover, we've got the seconder.
Seconder, Chair.
Thanks, Bill. Right. Any questions? Have we got any problems there? Matters arising? Nothing? Right. With that, we'll move on to item 3, which is declarations of interest. Does any member have any declaration to make? Or if we move down the agenda, you feel you have a declaration to make, then please make it. Item 4 is the Quarter 3 2021-22 Health, Safety and Wellbeing Performance Report. Can I ask Kevin Loft to present this report, please?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Kevin Loft, Occupational Health and Safety Manager. Just run through some of the key points from the report, starting with from point 13 on the COVID-19 health and safety update. For quarter 3, we were in a position where we were dealing with the government's autumn and winter plan, which was a progression from previous COVID roadmap stages 1 to 4. That sort of winter plan and that movement from the roadmaps was based around sort of vaccinations and antivirals, test, trace, isolate, supporting the NHS, updated advice on how people can protect themselves and others, and issues around border control as well. So the plans were caveated with a number of variables at that time in terms of how many people uptook vaccinations and other variables as well. As a result of that, the Council did commence during that period to look at some return to workplaces in terms of planning for that. However, during that period, there was an increase in rates, particularly around the Omicron variant. So even though we did have safer behaviours actions guidance from the government, the council took a decision at that time to effectively pause that plan around return to work based on the infection rates, particularly before Christmas. There were several key areas, changes in terms of government guidance, which the council was required to adapt and sort of revise their approaches in reflection of those, and particularly around things like self-isolation and people who were close contacts. And there was also a new increased push for vaccinations and the importance of vaccinations and offering first doses to 12 to 15-year-olds as well, which public health colleagues in the county were promoting through our schools. The council continued to provide a vaccination hub at County Hall for health and social care staff from within the NHS and also the council as well. Risk assessments, safe work procedures reviewed as we have done for the last 2 years, and the council also started to do some assurance testing around CO2 levels in buildings and some workplaces, and that was also reflected in schools in terms of education having access to those. A number of schools in that particular quarter had high level of outbreaks, and that was continued to be managed by the Education Oversight Multi-Agency Group chaired by a public health consultant, so we could keep on top and sort of address and support schools and education colleagues accordingly. Spennymoor was still being used for full council meetings, and as always we were constantly reviewing risk assessments, working with group leaders and members as well, to make sure that those decisions around council meetings were in accordance with that latest guidance. Moving forward on to consultation and communication, obviously health and safety services continue to work very closely with trade unions around joint inspections and audits of council workplaces and activities. I've just put a point in the report there about health and safety executive issued some new guidance around welding, in terms of the risks around that, which has led to a joint project between health and safety, occupational health, occupational hygienists, working with managers and people across the council to put a number of things in place to sort of reflect that guidance and make sure we're compliant. So there's a lot of work going on with that. In terms of audits and inspections, there was 127 audits and inspections undertook by the corporate health and safety team. And you can see there's just some key data in terms of the sort of compliance levels, the compliance scores in different areas, and the compliance actions priority as well. We can see the majority of those are low priority, which is positive. There was 2 fire-related incidents, Spennymoor Leisure Centre and also Spennymoor Branch Library. Both were linked to some antisocial behaviour and youth sort of setting fire, which was the main causes of that. And you can see they've been fully investigated, and we've linked with local police community support officers and made staff aware. So we've got extra vigilance in place, and we've put things in place to hopefully deal with those issues in those particular areas. There was 3 fire and rescue service inspections of council premises, and all 3 were broadly compliant with fire safety legislation, which is the highest level of compliance that the fire service would provide. Open water safety, both the City Safety Group and county-wide water safety groups met during this quarter. City Safety Group, there was a positive outcome in terms of student induction week, which lots of plans took place in terms of partners around that. So that was delivered successfully and safely during that week. Arrangements were made through the City Safety Group to engage with ROSPA in terms of further independent assessments of the new Milburn Gate development, the wider city centre and the river corridor following initial assessments in 2015 and 18. So there's lots of work going on in the city centre by the City Safety Group, which is chaired by Alan Patrickson, Corporate Director of Neighbourhoods and Climate Change. The county-wide safety group met and continued to put plans in place for the risks in terms of open water safety across the county. And there was also a meeting regarding Chesley Street Riverside Complex following an incident in August 2021. And we worked with a number of councillors there in terms of a number of issues and initiatives that we're going to focus on Chesley Street. In terms of employee health and wellbeing, there was ongoing interventions and communications around employee health and wellbeing up until the Christmas period. There was also a completion of an employee health and wellbeing engagement survey, which is part of the Better Health at Work Award. and also the promotion of employee wellbeing portal and the employee assistance programme to support employees during the pandemic and during general work activities. Occupational Health continued to deliver a number of management referral services, and Occupational Health also delivered the flu vaccination programme as well, setting up a number of clinics across council workplaces, and there was a number of flu vaccinations delivered out in terms of different workplaces across the county. You can see there was 284 employees participated in clinical consultations with Occupational Health, and there's a host of different information there regarding occupational health in terms of attendance rates and reasons for referrals, which are highlighted in the report. Also, there's a table there which covers things like access to physiotherapy sessions, number of referrals to employee assistance programs and different activities. The physiotherapy service continues to be well used. We've got a physio working 2 days a week, and we support employees with a whole range of sort of interventions required where physiotherapy would be deemed as a good intervention to utilise. In terms of health surveillance, you've got some details there around health surveillance. HSE guidance has changed. So again, health surveillance appointments, you can see in Q3, there was 147 provided in total. So again, a high, for the third quarter, relatively good high increase in terms of employees attending health surveillance, and Occupational Health continue to provide that service. In terms of immunisation, Occupational Health continue to provide a number of immunisation programmes, including hepatitis B. You can see there was a couple of inoculation incidents which were dealt with through Occupational Health, and obviously the on-site flu campaign as well. The Violence and Aggression Potentially Violent Persons Register table, you can see there the number of people on the Potentially Violent Persons Registers increased to 66. And below there is a number of services who are utilising and accessing that register, which are fed back in terms of this particular system being a useful tool and control measures around managing violence and aggression across the council. Health and safety related strategic risk table is provided in the report also, and that's the key points from the report, Chair.
Thanks for that, Kevin. Is there any questions for Kevin on the report? Are we happy to receive the report? All in agreement? Thanks very much. Thanks, Kevin. We move on to item 5, which is changes to the Code of Practice for Local Authority Accountings in the UK. Can I ask Beverly White to present this report, please?
Thanks, Chair. Morning, everyone. I'm Beverly White, a Finance Manager here at the Council. So as members of this committee will know, we closely follow the latest SIPFA Code of Practice on Local Authority Accounting when compiling the Annual Statement of Accounts. This report highlights the main changes to the code which impacts on the way we need to prepare the 21-22 accounts in comparison to last year's account preparation. The good news for us is that there's no material change to the way that we have to compile this year's accounts. The changes to the code are only minor and are set out in Appendix 2 to this report. If members recall, we were successful in achieving the statutory deadlines for publishing the accounts last year, but we were in the minority nationally. And this report provides information on the measures and potential changes the government may introduce to support the timely completion of local government audits and in its response to the Redmond review. So in December, the government proposed certain measures as set out in paragraph 14 of the report. The deadline to have this year's audited accounts published will be extended to the 30th of November 2022, then we'll revert back to the 30th of September in the following years. The government is to provide £45 million of funding to councils over a 3-year period, and that will help pay for the additional costs of strengthening financial reporting and increased audit requirements. The government proposed to strengthen training and qualification options for auditors and audit committee members, and as soon as we understand what that means for us, we'll inform audit committee members here. And finally, certain accounting and audit requirements may be reduced on a temporary basis. So in response to these proposed measures, the CIPFL Code Board issued an exceptional consultation on the 3rd of February 22. The consultation runs only until the 3rd of March this week and considers two changes. The first one's adapting the code to allow local authorities to pause professional valuations for operational property, plant and equipment for the next 2 years only, and examine the use of an index to be used for valuation purposes, and deferring the implementation of IFRS 16 for a further year into 22-23. This standard changes the way the local authorities have to account for its leases. So the Council's Finance and Corporate Property and Land teams have drafted a joint response to this consultation and will be submitted by the deadline. As the Council's valuation programme is almost complete for 21-22, pausing professional valuations at this late stage won't reduce officer workload for 21-22's accounts, and therefore we wouldn't opt to pause professional valuations this year if we get the choice. However, we would consider doing so for next year's accounts in order to ease workload pressures, and so long as it was in a structured manner. Our work to prepare for the introduction of IFRS 16 is fairly advanced as well, and officers continue to prepare for this change. However, there are areas regarding schools and peppercorn leases where the application of this standard is yet to be agreed at a national level. So a deferral should allow time for such issues to be addressed. So we therefore in support of the further deferral of IFRS 16 implementation. Until the outcome of the consultation is known, though, we will continue to prepare for the accounts on the basis of the 21-22 code as it currently stands. And as always, we'll keep committee members informed of any developments. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Beverly. Is there any questions for Beverly on this report? Yes?
Hi, I'm going to be Clive Robinson, co-opted member of the committee. Just on that point about the valuation of the plant, property, etc., I think probably the only things that we've seen raised in the accounts previously or in recent years have been around valuations. So why would we not continue getting, I know there's an opportunity to not get this done, but those are the only things that the external auditors have raised, I think, really as issues. So I'm a bit concerned that we would decide not to get a professional valuation on those.
Well, we have had our professional valuations do valuations on the property, plant and equipment. I think when CIPFR's proposing this, they think it's going to save time for officers and auditors if they come up with a national index. But our corporate property and land officers, valuers, are saying they've already done the work principally for this year, other than check the final valuations as at the 31st of March. And because there are local valuations as well, they think that they are the professional, well, they know they are the professionals. And why would anyone introduce an index that was a national index and doesn't bear possibly the true reflection of what our assets are valued here at County Durham?
Yeah, I must have misheard then, because I thought you'd said that we weren't taking up that professional valuation.
No, it's an index that has yet to be determined. So the option is to pause our professional valuations where we employ our own valuers to do our valuations. So CIPFR's option is to pause that and introduce an index for either this year or next year that is done nationally.
So as long as we're getting it done, then
Yeah.
that's fine. So as I say,
Yeah.
certainly the way you said it, I thought you'd said that we were stopping it, but
No,
that's
no.
fine. I'd rather stick with something local.
Yeah.
Okay, Clive?
That's fine.
All
Thanks.
right. Are members happy to note the changes detailed in the report as per recommendations? Are we happy to accept that? I take it we are. Silence. Thanks very much, Beverly. Right, we'll move on to item 6, agreement of accounting policies for application in the 2021-22 financial statements. Again, can I ask Beverly to take us through this report? Thanks, Beverly.
Thank you, Chair. So as there've only been minor changes to the CIPFR Code of Practice for 21-22, we aren't proposing any changes to the accounting policies we applied in the preparation of last year's accounts, as they are still appropriate for us to use in the preparation of this year's accounts. The full list of accounting policies we intend to apply in the preparation of the 21-22 Statement of Accounts is detailed in Appendix 2 to this report. One change we may need to make obviously depends on the outcome of Ifrs consultation on whether to pause professional valuations for operational property, plant and equipment. And until the outcome of this consultation is known, we'll continue to prepare the accounts on the basis of the 21-22 code as it currently stands. We will review our accounting policies and amend if necessary when we learn of the outcome of that review. So can I ask members to approve the use of these accounting policies in the preparation of this year's accounts and authorise the Corporate Director of Resources to review the accounting policies as we go through the final accounts process, reporting any changes necessary to the Audit Committee meeting that follows. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for that, Beverly. Has anyone any questions to the report? Can I ask members to agree the report as wrote? Thank you. Move on to item 7, which is the final accounts timetable for the year ending 31st of March 2022. Again, can I ask Beverly to take us through this report, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So this report provides information on the final accounts timetable for 2021-22. It sets out the key tasks and target dates for completion to enable us to produce the accounts in line with statutory deadlines. The timetable helps us to manage and monitor progress being made towards closing the accounts. The statutory deadlines have been extended this year in the government's efforts to support the timely completion of local government audits. So the two key dates we need to work towards for the publication of the 21-22 accounts are the 31st of July, which is the date by which the Corporate Director of Resources needs to certify the draft accounts, and the 30th of November, which is the deadline by which this Audit Committee has to approve the final or audited set of accounts. So although the statutory deadline has been extended, we've prepared the timetable on a similar target to 2021, where we aim to have the draft accounts completed by around the end of May. So this ties in with deadlines to have the final outturn report for 21-22 prepared, and it also enables the external auditor to start their review of our accounts as soon as they've completed their audit of the NHS accounts, which will help towards achieving the final accounts deadline. So in compiling the timetable, all relevant officers have had the opportunity to contribute and agree that the deadlines relevant to themselves and their teams are attainable. Appendix 2 sets out the key dates for members to note, but as you'd imagine, the actual timetable referred to by officers throughout the final accounts process is in much more detail than this. Throughout the final accounts period, my team will closely monitor the achievement of deadlines set out in the timetable. Weekly reminders will be sent to relevant officers in advance of tasks due to be completed the following week. We ask to be notified as we go through of any potential issues in achieving deadlines as soon as they come to light, so we can remain on track to meet the statutory deadlines. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for that, Beverly. Any questions to the report? Yes,
Ian Rudd, co-opted member. I was just looking at Appendix 2 and the circulation of related party transactions and party declarations is due about now. I think last year there were some issues with that, weren't there, and that there was problems getting the declarations back again. I wonder if something different will be done this year to solve that particular problem.
Yeah. Beverly?
For the last couple of years, we've tried to introduce an electronic form, and we'll be doing that again this year. I think some of the problems last year was as we had members leaving that weren't re-elected. Obviously, we've got members new in post this year, and we do always try and chase them. But I think now we've got meetings in person, it might help us just to chivvy members along if we're missing and we've got some outstanding. It's just something we have to just keep chasing, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, right, thanks, Ian. Any more questions? Yes, Paul?
Yeah, morning, Chair. Yes, just picking up your comment, Ian, I think what we'll also do is through the relevant group leads, we'll be sort of, if a member hasn't returned, we'll be going through their group leader to try and get them to make sure that they return the related party transactions again this year.
Okay, can I ask members to note the report and accept the recommendations as written? Okay, thanks very much. We'll now move on to item 8, which is External Audit 2021 Progress Report. Can I ask James Collins to present this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. James Collins, External Audit Manager with Mazars. So this progress report really just to draw your attention to 2 areas. The first is in relation to the 2021 audit. Members may recall at the last meeting we reported that the whole government accounts work was ongoing. To date, we still haven't received the instructions from the National Audit Office, and as a result, that work is not yet concluded. So we're not in a position to issue our audit certificate for the 2021 audit. We're expecting that to be resolved shortly, but we'll keep members up to date on any changes to that position. The other area just in the report is national publications, and just to draw your attention to the FRC's report into the findings of quality of major local body audits, and in particular the report highlights the work of Mazars. I know this is an area that was considered at the last Audit Committee, and it's just to draw members' attentions to the findings of the FRC report, which highlights improvements in the work of Mazars' audit work. So I'll pause there and happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks for that, James. Is there any questions to the report? Not at this point in time, James. Are you happy? Is that it? Oh, right, Ian, sorry.
Yeah, Ian Rudd, Co-operative member. I was just intrigued by the statement on page 86 that the National Audit Office delayed in giving the instructions, so that was the reason for the delay of the audit. And then on page 97, the FRC found that firms had taken action in response to previous findings. However, the timeliness of audit reporting was disappointing. So it seems contradictory on the one hand to criticising the audit delay in audits, yet the audit National Audit Office seemed to be the cause of some of the delays. Is that a fair comment?
It is and it isn't, I suppose. It's a fair comment in that certainly the whole government accounts, and I think in the National Audit Office's defence, I think they're waiting for the Treasury to resolve some issues with their consolidation software, which has led to some of the delays in releasing their group instructions. I think the FRC's point is more around the audit opinions, and I think Beverly in the presentation earlier raised the point that Durham certainly was an outlier in getting the deadline of the 30th of September, with many audits being signed off after that date. And that, I think, is the point that the FRC's report is making around the disappointing level of audit deadlines being met.
All right, thank you.
Okay, no more questions? Yes, Michael?
So, yeah, if I could just add, I think what we've done getting our getting the accounts in submitted on time is fantastic, considering the size of our council and all the work. And I do think that it, for those councils who want to get the work done and get it in on time, it can be done. It's just having the will to want to do it. And I think, you know, what we've done, certainly as far as submitting them on time and being being one of a handful of names to do that, I think shows the excellent work that's been done by the council on this issue. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely right, Michael, to repeat that. Right, can we accept the report and the recommendations as such? Thanks very much. Move on to item 9, which is the External Audit Durham County Council Audit Strategy Memorandum, year ended 31st of March 2022. Can I ask James again to present this report, please? Right.
Morning, Chair. Mark Kirkham, partner with Mazar. James is very, very willing to take every agenda item from Mazar, but I'll help out by talking to the audit plan, if that's all right. The audit plan for 21-22 includes the headings and the areas of work that members of this committee will be familiar with, and other key parts of the plan include the identified significant audit risks that we identify when we carry out our initial risk assessment. So just as with any audit, that risk assessment will be updated when we get the statement of accounts. So those significant audit risks are set out in section 4 of our report on starting on page 111, and they are the same significant risks that we identified in relation to our previous audit of the County Council's accounts, Chair. So I believe that there are areas that we reported on, and that even though there are new members of the committee, they'll be aware of the significant risks that we identified last year and that we reported on when we gave our opinion in September. We also set out the overall framework that we do in connection with our other Code of Practice responsibility. So as well as giving an opinion on the accounts, which quite rightly has received airtime at the meeting in terms of the accounting policies that the county adopts, we also need to form and express a view on the value for money arrangements that the County Council's got. So that's our second Code of Practice responsibility. And our arrangements are set out on page 116 in your pack. And as you can see, at this stage, we haven't identified a risk of a significant weakness in arrangements for the County Council at this stage. Section 6 sets out the intended fees for 21-22, and it compares them with the fees that we charged last year, and that's on page 119. Other parts of the document set out our intended time frame, which corresponds, is symmetrical with the preparation of the statements of accounts. And as has been said, we did give a relatively early opinion and closed down the County Council's audit last year in September. That was highly unusual, and while we acknowledge, as has been described, the excellent work the county does to prepare its financial statements, I need to be quite clear with you, if all of the other local authorities wanted their audit opinions by the timetable requirement in 2022, we couldn't do that, and that's because there's a national shortage of suitably qualified and experienced audit staff, Chair. So we are working to make sure that we deliver our opinion and our value for money work for the County Council similar to the timetable that we adopted last year. So you'll get an early closure of your accounts, because we're making sure that you get sufficient resource from the audit side in tandem with your early close down and account preparation procedures. So I'm happy to take any questions on the plan for the County Council, Chair.
Yes, thanks for those comments. Is any questions? Everybody happy to note the report and accept the recommendation as such? Thanks very much. We'll now move on to item 10, which is External Audit Durham Pension Fund Audit Strategy. Can I ask Sharon Little to present this report, please?
Morning again, Chair. It's Mark Kirkham. I'm going to be doing this plan because Sharon isn't available today, but I'm happy to talk to the plan for the pension fund. Our responsibilities here are slightly different in that we don't give a view on value for money arrangements, but we do give an opinion on the pension fund accounts. And we also give a view on the extent to which those accounts are consistent with the annual report that's prepared for the pension fund. So you'll see our plan is in a similar format for the County Council. Our significant risks, starting on page 144 in your pack, are slightly different. So there's a shared risk which is common on all external audits, and that's because of management override of controls and the susceptibility of those controls to being, let's say, interfered with by management to produce an inaccurate financial report. And the slightly different significant risk for the pension fund is in risk 2, set out on page 145, and that's because some of the valuations that are reported in the pension fund accounts are harder to reach. So it's not a simple question of going to the Financial Times at the end of March, reaching a value there and making sure that the accounts are symmetrical and are based on those values. The fund management arrangements are a lot more complicated than that, and that's why we identify the investments at level 3 in the fair value hierarchy as being of high audit risk. So we define additional procedures in order to make sure that we get satisfactory external audit evidence before we give our opinion on the pension fund's accounts. The fees for our work on the pension fund are set out on page 147, and it's important for members of the committee to note, because this will be the first time that you've seen the 2021 actual fee for the pension fund work. So that's set out in the column in that table there as being the core fee of 19,957 plus a fee variation of 4,750, together with the assurance letters that were sent out for last year's accounts arrangements. Because it's the first time that we've communicated that, it's just important that members of the Audit Committee note that fee variation. And as you can see, our proposed 21-22 fee, we're starting off with the basis of the skill fee, but I anticipate that we'll need to do additional work following FRC findings on audits to make sure that we make sure our work continues to be up to scratch. I'm going to pause there, and yet again, I'm happy to take any questions on the pension fund audit plan, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for that. Any questions, any comments? No. No. Can I ask members to accept the recommendation of the report? Thanks very much. And I'll move on to item 11, which is corporate governance review. Can I ask Kevin Roberts to present this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Still on the final accounts theme, the purpose of this report is to inform the Audit Committee of the dates in the annual governance review for the 21-22 financial year to enable the statutory deadline to be achieved. And this was referred to in item 7 of today's agenda about the final accounts table. The outcome of the governance review will be reported through the draft annual governance statement with the unaudited statement of accounts, and then through the final version with the audited statement of accounts. And Appendix 2 just lists the dates that approval of these statements will be requested from the Corporate Director of Resources, the Corporate Management Team, and from the Audit Committee. So Audit Committee is just requested to note the contents of this report.
Yep, thanks very much, Kevin. Any questions, any comments? No. Can we accept the report? Can we? Yes. Okay, Clive.
Thanks, Clive Robinson, co-opted member. Just one question on page 168. We talked about reviews by external auditor and bodies such as Ofsted Care Quality Commission may provide.
I'm sorry, Clive, can you speak?
Sorry, Kevin. On page 168, we talk about some of the other sources of assurance that we get around bodies such as Ofsted and Care Quality Commission. Just really occurred to me, it's not something we ever see here at the Audit Committee. How would the any issues arising or any positive assurances that we get from those sorts of bodies be reported as part of this framework? Is there any visibility that we get through other sources that I'm not sort of picking up on already?
Talk about the governance review.
So, yeah, we talk about the risk management framework. We say that as part of that control framework, we get independent assurance on from internal audit and also from external audit, so we see their reports and their comments coming through. But we also reference things such as Ofsted, the Care Quality Commission. I'm sure there are a range of other bodies that we may see things come through. So I just want to say, how does this Audit Committee get visibility of the outcomes of those?
That's a good question. I mean, it's maybe something that we need to adjust, to work on. I mean, I know that that kind of report will go to overview and scrutiny committees.
Right, okay.
But, that doesn't mean that we can't introduce something whereby we get a summary or confirmation of the feedback that goes to those committees.
Thanks, Kevin. Paul would like to come in here.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a good question, Clive. The Audit Committee do in the annual governance statement, in the overall control framework and in answering the individual questions that are posed by the corporate, the annual governance statement, you'll see references to any sort of significant matters around sort of inspection outcomes, so that they are covered in the annual governance statement. I think the question you're asking relates to the next item we're going to discuss in terms of the risk management approach, and that obviously influences some of the strategic risks and the assessments that we take to Council. For instance, a couple of years ago the Council received a difficult Ofsted judgment on its services. That was obviously escalated in terms of the strategic risk register, and there were a number of actions that dropped out of the back of that. But as Kevin quite rightly says, the individual inspection outcomes themselves will be subject to individual scrutiny reviews, but the overall governance and risk environment that sits around some of those inspection outcomes are either subsumed into the annual governance statement, inform the annual governance statement, or are in individual strategic risks that are part of the strategic risk register, most of which the Audit Committee have a strong oversight on.
Okay, right, thanks, Bob. And I think, yeah, I'll pick that up in the next section on the risk management piece. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Clive. Can we note the report and accept the recommendation, please? Yes. Move on to item 12, which is the Strategic Risk Management Progress Report for the quarter ending 31st of December 21. Kevin, are you going to take us through that?
Thank you again. Yeah, so this item aims to give assurance obtained from risk owners that risks are being effectively managed through the Council's risk management framework. Following a request by the Audit Committee, the format of this report was enhanced recently to include an outline of the mitigations for every risk on the register, whereas previously this was only done for high-scoring risks, or key risks as we call them. Wouldn't be practical to go through all of the risks today, so what I'll try to do is just outline the main developments over the last review period, and I'm trying to answer any questions or provide any clarification where necessary. So since the previous update, there are 3 new risks relating to energy prices, school improvement grant and HGV drivers. There's an amended risk around care provision, care providers and their sustainability. There's an update on the Council and its partners' response to Storm Arwen, and progress updates on various other risks. So I will start so my page number, and I hope it's the same as everyone else's, on at the top of page 9 of my report. One of the new risks is around energy prices, where I think sure everyone will be aware of the challenges in the energy industry have made wholesale gas and power markets extremely volatile. So that has put extreme financial pressures on the council. So the report sets out the main sort of mitigations of the council, which includes work with the North East Procurement Organisation. In paragraph 2 below that, another one of the new risks relates to government plans to phase out school improvement grant by 24-25, and that could undermine the council's ability to support maintain schools effectively. So there's a brief outline of the issues and how the council are responding. Next new risk is in paragraph 3 below, national shortage of HGV drivers that may impact the council workforce, leading to disruption for statutory services. And again, there's just an outline of the issues with details of the mitigations, which I won't go through in detail. The amended risk is around pressures affecting the sustainability and capacity of care providers. That was subject to quite a detailed refresh by the risk owner, and that one has been re-evaluated. And again, a number of key mitigations are outlined in the report under paragraph 4. Under paragraph 5, there's the update on Storm Arwen. So the response to Storm Arwen is covered by the Council's strategic risk of a major incident, and that is the risk management arrangements there are a joint effort between the Council and many of its partners through the local government, the local resilience forum, sorry. So again, there's a few paragraphs there sort of briefly setting out the event and the impacts, what the risk management arrangements in place are to respond to that, and a bit more detail there on the Council's response, with a bit of focus on how they supported vulnerable residents and other residents who suffered loss of power during the incident. And certain categories of stakeholder, if you like, who had specialised needs, especially in remote and rural locations. Okay, and so yeah, that was just an update on that response. From paragraph 6, there are updates on various risks, including COVID-19. The Council's winter planning response for, with partners in the health and social care services. Paragraph 8, there's an update there on the land slippage on the near the A690. Paragraph 9. Yeah, just a very brief sort of update on new pressures relating to future funding settlements. It's in paragraph 9, and in paragraph 10, similar pressures in relation to the Council's savings plans. Yeah, I think I'll just pause there and just give you the opportunity to ask any questions on those issues or any other parts of the report.
Paul's going to make comment here.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think it's just picking up on Clive's earlier question. If you look at one of the strategic risks is around failure to protect the child, and then there's one about failure to protect a vulnerable adult. Clearly, that's the sort of the high-level risk, and obviously, what informs that overall risk assessment are the judgments that providers, because they're subject to inspection by Ofsted and various Care Quality Commission, etc. So, obviously, the overall state and quality of the care that's provided to vulnerable children and adults is one of the key measures and the issues that are taken into account in terms of assessing that overall level of risk, Clive. So obviously if there was whole-scale problems in a sector or there was major issues being identified by the CQC or by Ofsted, then obviously that would then need to be reflected in our risk assessment and the actions that fall on the back of that. So I think I'm sort of in a roundabout way saying they are, the fact that they aren't being brought to your attention doesn't means that there isn't a significant issue that needs to be escalated for discussion as part of the risk register. So hopefully.
Are we fine with that?
I can just, I mean, that was exactly the area I was concerned about, Paul, and particularly the children's, particularly the children's area. I mean, obviously there's been some high-profile and significant tragedies, and I think that just makes me increasingly, my risk appetite of saying that this sits in possible rather than unlikely changes when you see that things happen and it's elsewhere. And I suppose what I'm looking for is the maximum amount of assurance that we're not sitting here and accepting that that sort of impact is possible in this authority. And so there may be, and I'm sure there are, a whole host of activities that are mitigating that risk that we're not seeing, and we don't need to be managing this. That's what the officers and the members are doing. But as sitting on this committee, I don't want to be sitting here and find out something happens, and I didn't challenge this to say why do we tolerate possible, and what can we do to move to unlikely. I think that's probably what I'm looking at from those sources of assurance and the feedback we get from external, but also from those who are leading that service.
You want to make any more comments?
No, I think it's the right challenge, Clive, and it's something that I know the service are alive to, and the fact that the likelihood is rated as possible is in no way a reflection of a sort of an acceptance of, the services continually striving to get that additional assurance, put those safeguards in place. It's an area that we've invested huge amounts of resource in terms of our looked after children sufficiency strategy over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. We've almost sort of spent something like £30 million ensuring that we've got the right safeguards in place, the right placements in place, so we've intervening in the right way. We've invested significantly in our social care workforce to try and sort of ensure we've got as robust a response to make sure that we safeguard vulnerable children and adults. So yes, it's an area that we continually look at. It's subject to a monthly overview by corporate management team. So it's something that corporately and within the Children and Young People Service we are alive to that fact, and something we look at take extremely seriously and look at on a monthly basis.
Fine, Clive. Right, can I ask members... sorry.
Question, Chair. Land slippage on A690. There's no location. I would like to know. A690 is quite a length. Whereabouts and what's the nature of this land slippage, please?
Yes.
I think it's the section between the A1 and what's it called again? The not Framogate. Gilesgate, sorry. Do you know the section of road I mean?
I travel that way most days, and so I'll be interested to know exactly, because all it says A690, but it doesn't say where.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously, the location is obviously known. It just isn't reflected in the risk assessment, but and I couldn't point to the exact part on the A690, but that's as specific as I can be between the A1 and Gilesgate.
Paul's coming in here, Bill.
Yeah, I think it is, obviously the 690 runs all the way through and across the city and up over. It is that section from the A1 down into the city past the piece that you travel on, Bill. What I'll do is I'll ask Kevin the next time we give the update to put a little map in there and sort of show you the section where there is the concern over there. But just to reassure the committee, it is something that is being monitored. There's monitoring equipment in place, and all mitigation is in place. And so if it escalates to an extent where there's major works required, the major work will be done. So it's just at this stage sort of it's being monitored and carefully looked at, as it has been for a number of years now.
Okay, Bill. Any more questions? Any comments? Right, can we ask members to approve the recommendation, which is to confirm that the report provides assurance that strategic risks are being effectively managed within the risk management framework across the council? That's the recommendation. Are we happy to accept that? Thanks very much. We'll now move on to item 13, which is revised risk management policy and strategy. Can I ask Kevin to present this report again, please?
Thank you. So Audit Committee is requested to consider the updated risk management policy and strategy, which is attached as Appendix 2. So the policy expresses the Council's commitment to making risk management an integral part of management and decision-making through the risk management strategy, and the importance of risk management as a part of performance management and the achievement of corporate objectives is also acknowledged there. The strategy sets out the Council's aims, objectives and approach with regard to risk management and the elements of the risk management framework, including the various parties and their roles and responsibilities. So what we've done is reworded the policy statement to make it more concise, and the strategy has been reordered into a logical sequence with numbering and so on. And the other key sort of thing to mention here is that the strategy has been reviewed alongside guidance from the Chartered Institute of Public Finance and Accountancy, and also the Council's Financial Risk Management Standard, which is linked to the Constitution. So the documents align with each other. And so the Audit Committee is requested to consider and approve the revised version of the policy and strategy.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kevin. Any comments, any questions? Are we happy to accept the recommendation? Yep, thanks very much. We'll now move on to item 14, which is the Internal Audit Progress Report, quarter ended 31st of December 21. Can I ask Paul Monaghan to present this report, please? Paul?
Thanks, Chair. I'm Paul Monaghan, Audit Manager for Durham County Council. So yes, this is the Q3 Progress Report for 2021-22. The table in paragraph 8 shows the progress made against the plan. The detail of this is in Appendix 2. All of the final reports issued in the period, they're shown in Appendix 3. Then, as set out in paragraph 11, we have had staffing resource issues, particularly with regard to trying to appoint to a senior auditor post which has been vacant. But just to update you on that, we have recently appointed a really good candidate to this post, and it's planned for her to start up in that position within the next few weeks. So some good news there. The changes to the plan, they're shown in the tables in 14 and 15, with many of the changes being required because of the staffing and operational issues previously mentioned. Then the table in paragraph 17 shows the survey response rate of 86%, with an average score of 4.8 out of 5. A summary of the status of actions is included in paragraph 19. So there was 17 actions not implemented by the original target date, all of which have had revised dates set. Details of these actions are shown in Appendix 6, which is included in Part B of the agenda. Paragraph 22 shows that there was no limited assurance reports issued in the quarter. So finally, members are asked to note the 4 recommendations in paragraph 4. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Can we accept the recommendations, unless you've got any comments, any questions? Are we okay to accept the recommendation? Yes, thanks very much. We'll now move on to item 15, which is the Emergent Internal Audit Plan 22-23. Can I ask Tracy Henderson to present this report, please? Tracy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Tracy Henderson, Chief Internal Auditor and Corporate Fraud Manager. So this report is on the Emergent Audit Plan for 22-23. As Paul's just referred to in the progress report, we have obviously had some issues in relation to just the recruitment, retention of some audit staff recently, and also the impact of the COVID pandemic, which has impacted on the delivery to be able to deliver the internal audit plan for 21-22. So this emergent plan is for the audit year 22-23. It's been a challenging 2 years due to COVID and the staffing issues, and it's considered to be unrealistic for a detailed 12-month internal audit plan to be presented to committee for agreement at this point in time. Paul's just referred to the recent appointment that we've made to the senior auditor post, which is extremely positive. But we have also got an audit manager who has decided to retire, so obviously we are in the process of recruiting to that post as well. So what I'd like to do today is I'd like to present to you a 12-month plan balanced to the resources that we envisage we'll have available from the 1st of April. I consider it's unrealistic to get agreement for the 12-month plan at the point in time, and what I'd like committee to do is to approve the first 6-month plan from the 1st of April till the 30th of September 22. This is the Emergent plan, which I will then bring to committee in May for formal review and approval. And I do propose to come back to committee in September, take stock of where we are at that point in time, and present the 6-month plan for the following 6 months from October till March 2023. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tracy. Any questions, any comments? No? So can we accept the recommendation as such, as written? Yes, thanks very much. Right, item 16. There's no further businesses of sufficient urgency to warrant any further consideration, so that ends the meeting as such, as far as the public and press are concerned. Could we have a mover of the exclusion of the press and public, please?
Move it, Chair.
Moved and seconded. Thanks very much. Nobody couldn't even. Right. Moving on to part B.